Carolina's field, forest, and water. A closer look at agriculture in South Carolina, and conversations between the current and future leaders of the Palmetto State's largest industry. Carolina's Field, Forest, and Water is a production of the student media team at the South Carolina Governor's School for Agriculture at John De La Howe. And now, here's your host, KC Connolly.
Welcome into today's edition of Carolina Field, Forest, and Water. My name is KC Connolly, and our special guest today is Justin Powell. In April of this year, he was confirmed by the State Senate as the new Secretary of Transportation for South Carolina. He manages the agency that oversees thousands of miles of highways across the Palmetto State and other aspects of the sector here. He is visiting with us today on our campus. Thanks for joining us today, Mr. Powell.
Thank you for having me, Casey.
So I wanted to talk to you about, you work for SCDOT, and just could you give me a broad statement of kind of what that is before we go into it? Because what is your job in SCDOT?
Sure. So I have the privilege and honor of managing the state's Department of Transportation. So we are maintain the fourth largest state highway system in the country. Only Texas, Virginia, and North Carolina have bigger state highway systems than little old South Carolina. We got about 4,000 team members, and they do a variety of things, but their main focus is maintaining and constructing the state's highway system. We also have responsibility in transit and rail as well.
Oh, wow. Okay. So that's a lot. So here at the Governor's School, it's for agriculture, of course. So is there any environmental aspect to these roads, bridges, and things that y'all are building and planning?
Sure.
Is there an environmental aspect?
We do have an environmental aspect at DOT. So we have over $6 billion worth of road construction happening in South Carolina. And when you do that, that means you have impacts on communities as well as the natural environment. And so we actually have an environmental office at DOT that does a lot that in terms of having biologists that are looking for bats and other species on property. We're doing conservation of land when we impact a stream or a wetland nearby. We even have archaeologists on staff that go through and take a look at historic sites that we have and make sure we protect them. So preserving our natural cultural heritage in South Carolina is really important for us when we do build a project across South Carolina.
That's amazing. And the fact that we have that part of the government, because nowadays people are, the government's against us, this and that, but there's a part of it that's, we want this to stay around. Yeah. We're here to help you. We're here to keep your environment safe, keep it healthy.
So can you tell us a little bit about how you got to where you are now, like a little bit about your upbringing and how you really became the state secretary?
Well, so I grew up in the Charleston area. I grew up on James Island, and I grew up down there amongst the creeks and the harbor down there as well. So a great place to grow up. And then I went up to Wofford College in Spartanburg County, where you're from. And I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. And so I ended up doing a master's degree and went to North Carolina for a little bit. And I knew I liked government. I knew I liked politics. I knew I liked building things. And so I've had a career mostly on the finance side of things, but always trying to figure out how to make a big project happen. And so I worked in Greenville for a long time and helped build their downtown, did projects like the Swamp Rabbit Trail was one of the things I worked on, some of the downtown revitalization projects, and then did some time in Dorchester County, South Carolina, and worked on projects there. And then before I came to the DOT, I worked in Horry County, so Myrtle Beach area, but also Conway, Ain, or Loris area. One of the big projects I worked on was actually renourishing the beaches there. So I got to work on trying to figure out how you rebuild the beaches in Horry County, which is the most important asset that they have, is that natural environment there. And then we had a big hurricane come through Myrtle Beach area when I was working there. It was Hurricane Florence. We had a huge flood that occurred. And that's really how I built a relationship with the then Secretary of Transportation, a woman named Christy Hall. Grew up in Abbeville County, not far from here. And she asked me to come join her team. And so for the past 5 years, I've had a great experience working at the Department of Transportation and have just been able to work on so many different projects, touch every part of South Carolina, from rural places like McCormick all the way into downtown Charleston, downtown Columbia as well.
So you were talking about how it's not just the road systems. I'm sure there's a lot that goes into it, because I mean, you're talking about railways, waterways, roadways, and that's so foreign to me. That just the idea of being able to like oversee all that under one like broad term of Department of Transportation. So how do you go about dealing with that?
Well, you really have to rely on your team, and you have to have great people working for you, and that's how anything gets done in this country. So we got 4,000 team members at DOT, fantastic group of folks that really do dedicate themselves to making their local communities, their local counties better, and we kind of work from there. And so I couldn't do it without the team, couldn't do it without our commission, the folks that kind of help us guide where we're going and to make South Carolina a better place.
So you were talking about teams, and from what I understand, there's 3 like subcategories, if you will, to your environmental like department. So that would be permitting, and then NEPA, and what was the last one? Just started with a C. Compliance.
Yeah.
Yep. So how would each of those different subcategories come together to build that environmental service unit?
Sure. So when we have a project, what we'll do is we'll go in, we will do an assessment of it. We will take a look at it. What's already there on site? What kind of animals are in the habitat? What kind of plants are out there? Are there any historic resources? Native American historic places there, historic properties. We'll do that assessment. And so that's part of the process, is to really try to understand what's there, so that if we're building a road, how do we avoid making an impact to it? Or if we have to make an impact to it, we have to kind of figure out how we can mitigate that impact. So sometimes we'll hit a stream, we'll have to do that. And so what we'll do is go ahead and try to, maybe not in that location, but somewhere else, preserve, protect, and enhance a wetland or a stream that's already been there. So that's part of getting those permits that we need to do. And then we have that team on our side that will then ultimately go and say, are we making sure that we're following what we need to do? Make sure that we've got the proper protections on what we're doing when we build a project. And so it all works together as a single unit, and a great team there that has really done a lot of different things for us, that make a lot of innovative projects that help us deliver this transportation projects that our residents are expecting, but doing it in a way that protects the what makes South Carolina special.
Yes, sir. And y'all have, it sounds like you're out in the field a lot, so y'all are hands-on. A lot of people say, oh, I have my job, I have to go to work. Yeah. But for you, do you like to go into work? Because it looks like, I was on your website earlier, and y'all are out in the field sometimes. Like, there's your work aspect to it, but it seems like, you get to be out in nature.
Yeah. No, I think you got to like to be out. For most of our employees, you got to like to be outside. Mm-hmm. Whether you're on our environmental side, working out in a knee deep in a creek, or if you're a bridge inspector, being able, hanging off the side of a bridge, trying to make sure that all the components are there, to our maintenance employees that are out there fixing potholes and mowing the grass. So all of that is part of day to day. I love being able to get out of Columbia and going out and visit folks and see what we're doing. I visited our maintenance crew this morning in McCormick County. But you can get into all sorts of interesting things. One thing that we've been working on, we're in the process of widening I-26 from Columbia to Charleston. It's be a huge project that we're doing. One of the things that when they pulled up the plans from the 1950s and 60s when they built the interstate, it said there were some graves there. And so we had an archaeological dig in the middle of I-26 to see if it was really there. And so I actually was coming back from Charleston, and I pulled off the side of the road and got to go explore, see what they were doing. So it's those type of things that we do. But to me, what's important about the DOT is that everybody uses state highway in South Carolina. There's 41,000 miles of road. So whether you drive or not, you depend on it to get to your family, get to school, get to your job, get to healthcare. All those things are necessary. So it's one of those few jobs in the country where you get to help the life of every single person in your state.
And you mentioned the roads, so I know you probably hear this all the time. South Carolina roads.
Yeah.
how does that compare to the other states? Because you hear the stereotype, oh, all the roads are bad in South Carolina. And I mean, I drive in South Carolina. You drive in South Carolina. So how does that compare to the other roads? Is there different funding or is there different, I mean, is it an environmental thing?
So a lot of what we deal with in South Carolina is that for a long time, there wasn't the funding necessary to maintain our roads as well. So back in 2017, the General Assembly dramatically increased the amount of money we had. And so we had 30 years of deferred maintenance on our system. So we're catching up right now. But kind of scale and context of what we've been able to accomplish in the past 7 years, we have over 8,800 miles of paving projects going on across the state. So every single county in the state has had roads improved, over 350 bridges. One thing that's really important for us is reducing our rural road safety fatality rate. And so we've been able to put out 1,000 miles to reduce our worst in the nation rural road fatality rate. And then we've been working on our interstate system. So what I say to folks is that we had a hole that we were in, but we're in the process of recovering. And I think you can see it. The complaints a lot of times I don't get any more about the pothole, but because of the construction zone that you've been stuck in. And so there's a little bit of pain and progress, but it's been you can see it getting better every day in South Carolina.
Well, like you were saying earlier, conservation. South Carolina, we are going through a land crisis as of right now. I mean, there's all these new developments and stuff. I mean, it's a good thing. The population's growing. We're getting more income. It's great. But I just love how the road systems, like you guys are very adamant about conservation. And that's really important to me as a farmer. Because, I mean, we're losing hundreds of acres every single day. So I just find it, I thank y'all for what you do.
Well, you know, the birth of the DOT actually comes from agriculture. So all the predecessor agencies actually were in the Department of Agriculture. And the purpose was so that farmers could get their products to market. And so to make sure that farmer could grow in there, that they're not getting bottomed down on a mud dirt road somewhere, that they had a paved road that they can bring the livestock or their produce into market. And so, you know, that to me for DOT is always important to remember that our rural roots really did come out of helping farmers and agriculture prosper in South Carolina and beyond.
Oh, absolutely, because agriculture is like one of, if not the biggest industries in South Carolina. So it's really cool to see those work hand in hand. And I mean, speaking of working hand in hand, how does it work working between like U.S. Department of Agriculture, U.S., like working with all these different categories of the government? Sure. How does that work with the SCDOT? So, I mean,
at South Carolina, we like to view it as a team sport. So we work hard to work together well with folks. So we have a good relationship with our federal highway partners who provide a lot of our money, about $1 billion into the department every year. But we have to work with the Army Corps of Engineers, who do a lot in terms of regulating the rivers and streams and the wetlands in the United States. We do a lot of work with DNR. And we're close with the agriculture community. I'm always talking with Farm Bureau, Forestry Association. What kind of things do they need to make sure that their industry, just like manufacturing or tourism, can thrive as well in South Carolina?
Thank you. I mean, it's crazy. I'm always hearing my buddies. I mean, we're always on the road somehow, or that's hauling grain or getting new equipment on the farm. Yeah. And it's nice to be able to pave road, not getting bottomed out every time I try to get to the farm. So, I mean, the South Carolina Department of Transportation is a really big help for farmers, and I'd like to thank y'all for that.
Speaking of farmers, isn't South Carolina one of like the 14 southern states that has a CDL waiver for like farm equipment, tractors?
So we'll do that. One of the other things we'll do is we'll work hard with agricultural, when trucks are moving product to market, we do work with them and making sure that they have the proper permits to do that and to make it in a way that's as agricultural friendly as we can, so that we can help support our farmers and agriculture industry, because we know it can be a difficult time, particularly as you were talking about with land being eaten up right now. So we do what we can, particularly on bulk permits for forestry and for agriculture, so that they can get their goods to market as efficiently as possible.
Yeah, that's so interesting, because you would never thought, here you go down the road and you're stuck behind a tractor, but you wouldn't have ever thought somebody higher up was thinking about little old farmers chugging down the road. That's interesting. That's awesome.
Absolutely. I mean, it really is like, it's really nice to see that people care about the farmers in South Carolina. Because, I mean, we, as farmers, we put a lot more into the economy every year. We're always out there in the field working, but it's nice to know that we have friends in the government that are there for us to help us every step of the way. I mean, we really do appreciate it. It means a lot for all of us. And
I have one more question about the trees. I mean, isn't there specific types or different kinds of things you can have by the roads or depending on if there's water nearby? Could you tell me a little more about that?
So, I mean, obviously, SCDOT is actually the largest landholder in South Carolina. So we own a lot of trees. Obviously, we do put standards on when somebody wants to plant a tree in the right-of-way, what kind of trees that we put in there. But one of the things that's been, I've worked on a lot since becoming secretary is what we call significant trees. So when you get down to the lower part of the state, you have those oak trees that have been there for ever. That have been there for hundreds of years. How do we make sure that we can involve the traveling public, make sure that they can safely travel, but also protect what makes South Carolina special? And that whether it's an oak tree or a palmetto tree, we do what we can, make sure that we take care of those sensitive and important trees to our state. And
I mean, I was just wondering, I know we have to wrap it up here, but you have places to be, important man, but is there anything else you'd like to explain or tell the people about how SCDOT works with agriculture and how the road systems or the beavers in the water, in the wetlands are affecting?
Yeah. No, I mean, I think we've been real focused over the past several years on paving roads. Big emphasis for us is on bridges, which are so critical for getting products to market. And so we were very fortunate last year. The General Assembly gave us $200 million to rebuild more bridges across the state. So, I think that's what's important is that we view it as we're taking care of the whole state and the whole industry as we can. But I think it's just important that transportation counts for everybody, and we got to do our part for both urban areas and rural.
All right, well, that's so interesting. It's about time we wrap it up, though. Thank you for being on our episode and for just giving us all this information. And again, you were the Secretary of Transportation. That was so good to have you on. Thank you so much.
I appreciate it. This is a fantastic campus. Amazing things are happening there, and I really do appreciate the opportunity to visit and to be on the show today.
Thank you so much. I'm KC Connolly. And this is Dell Brockman, and we're out.
Carolina's Field, Forest, and Water, a closer look at agriculture in South Carolina, is a production of the student media team at the South Carolina Governor's School for Agriculture at John De La Howe. For more information on our school, visit our website at www.delahowe.sc.gov.